Alright, Algebra 2 people, here we go. This is still lesson 1.5, just the second part of it, inequalities only, solving inequalities. Now, they are extremely similar to the first video, about solving equations. A lot of similarities, but there are some differences. Now, number one, if you look at the 3 examples that are ready to go, there's only 5 total in this part. But they're basically just, there's the absolute value and then there's a less than and a greater than. There's nothing in front like the videos were, how the video ended for equations. There's nothing after the fact. That'll be on the next 2 examples that I do that complete this lesson. But here's the difference. You're looking at less thans and greater thans and less than or equal to's and greater than or equal to's and such. So not only are you going to solve for the variable like the directions state, you're also going to graph your final answer on a number line. So let's understand something. Now in a minute here, these problems are going to turn into 2 problems to solve just like the equations. Like if this had said absolute value equals 14, well, we're looking at the numbers 14 and negative 14 because they are the same distance away from 0, 0 being in the middle, they're both out there. I'm looking at being less than 14. Okay? That means these 2 numbers, I'm looking at getting closer to the 0. I don't want to be a big distance away. I don't want to be exactly 14 away. I want to be less. So let's talk about that. So right away, we go to our 2 problems. The first problem is as is. 4x plus 10 less than 14. See, if you consider 14 being here, and my face is 0, I'm trying to get less and towards it. Now, the other thing is going to be the number negative 14. Now think about that. You want the distance to be less. So if negative 14 is out here, less is coming back this way. Well, what direction is that on the number line? That's greater than. So you guys, when you set up these problems, it needs to be as it's written, less than 14, versus, switch the sign, greater than negative 14. It's a double switch. Switch the inequality, switch this sign. Okay? Now, when that's all said and done, now we solve these 2 problems. And they get solved the same way. Subtract 10, divide by 4. Alright? So, subtract 10. 4x is less than 4. 14 minus 10 is 4. Divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, 1x, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. You have one part of this question that says x is less than 1. Now we go to this one. And we've learned how to solve inequalities. That was in a previous lesson. So, subtract 10. 4x greater than negative 14 minus 10 is negative 24. Divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1x is greater than negative 24 divided by 4 is negative 6. Now, we are going to graph these together on one number line. Okay, so there's a location for negative 6 and 1. Now listen, you're going to have one of 2 scenarios. Either you're going to have the 2 locations, and because of their inequality, the 2 numbers are going to end up going right at each other and hitting head to head, which means the answers are everything in between. Or you're going to have the 2 locations, the answers go completely opposite. There is no in between. They can't both be up and go to your right. They can't both go up and to your left. They either answers head right at each other, which means everything in between, or they're out, which means everything over here or over here. There is no in between, and I'll explain why, what happens. This particular one, so when I go to graph this, people, I'm going to see where it's headed. Because if the first thing I graph is headed towards the other answer, then that other answer better be heading towards back towards the other one. Both of these, for the record, are open circles. They are not equal to situations. They're less thans and greater thans. Folks, this one says x is less than 1. So please notice the less than heading towards the other answer. The other one says x is greater than -6. -6 greater, they meet in the middle. Folks, that means the solutions to this problem are any number between -6 and +1. Any number. Whole numbers, decimals, fractions, anything in between these two numbers will substitute into this and check for a true statement. Anything outside, anything bigger than 1, anything smaller than -6, going to fail. When I plug it in and check, the answer will not be less than 14. It'll be something else. Okay? Let's move on to the next one. Really relatively the same question. But I got a greater than symbol. I understand I have a greater than or equal to symbol, which at the end of the day just means when I go to graph, I'm going to have closed circles. But this one's a greater than versus the original was a less than. Let's see what effect that has on the problem. So number one, write our problems. 4x minus 9 greater than or equal to 27. In other words, what you see is what you write minus the absolute value sign. Now this time, think about this. Our absolute value is trying to get bigger than a 27. So think of, meaning trying to get away. Trying to get a greater distance away. So think about 27 over here. Am I doing that right? Yeah. 27 over here. Getting a greater than means going that way. Well, what about -27? What takes me farther away? That way. So remember we talked about this sign should switch and so should this. So the alternate problem is 4x minus 9 less than or equal to -27. See, these are taking me from the positive and going away, the negative and going away. Greater than, less than, they're getting away from each other because this means distance should be greater, which means the answer should be far apart. Less than means the distance should be less, which means the answer should be closer together, and hence they are. They're close together in the middle. If I solve these two problems here, they are both the same solve of add 9, divide by 4. So add 9. We get 4x greater than or equal to 36. 27 plus 9. Divide by 4. And I get x is greater than or equal to 9. 36 divided by 4 is 9. Over here when I add 9, we get 4x is less than or equal to -18. Okay? Divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. X less than or equal to -4.5. Pretty sure. I'm on a video. I should be accurate. Let's make sure that that divides out correctly. Yeah. Okay. So this time, as I set up this number line, 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll just say that that's -5 right there. First of all, they're both or equal to situations. I don't care if it's greater than or less than, they're equal to. So at 9, we should have a filled in dot. At -4.5, which is right in the middle there, we should have a filled in dot. Now we're going to do what they say. Now remember what I said. Either they go at each other and meet in the middle, or they go completely opposite directions. They can't both go the same direction. I mean, you got to think about that. When one problem is what the original sign was and the other problem is the sign reversed, they can't possibly be both less than. They can't be both greater than. That means you forgot to flip a sign. So when I look at x is greater than or equal to 9, greater than is this way. We can see this one's heading away, which means this other one should be heading away, and it is. That's x is less than. Folks, that means any number smaller than 4.5 can plug in and work, or any number bigger than 9 can plug in and work. None of the numbers between will substitute and work. They'll give you a false statement. Now, there is a method to this madness. And you don't necessarily have to remember this, but it's certainly helpful information and nice information. If the original symbol is absolute value is less. Less means less distance close together. Those answers come together. If the absolute value is greater, absolute greater, we want the distance to be greater. Get away from each other. That's going to happen. So every single time, if it's a less than originally, absolute value less, it's going to be connected and together. If it's absolute value greater, the answers will go apart. So keeping that in mind, and I've got an extra little twist in this next problem, you can see that the original question is absolute value is less. Less than means the answers should be coming together, and I know they should be coming together, so I'm going to make sure that that happens. If it doesn't happen, I've made a mistake. Okay, so we got the original question, negative 9x plus 3 less than or equal to 60, versus the other question, which is negative 9x plus 3 greater than or equal to negative 60. Always switch the inequality and change the sign. We are going to solve these two. Folks, I'm going to give you a heads up. You can see that the steps to solve these are going to be subtract 3, divide by negative 9. Now this goes back a couple of lessons, but we were taught when I divide by a negative in an inequality situation, the sign must switch. And if I forget to switch that sign, the situation I explained in advance won't happen. See, the original absolute value is less than, means the answer should be coming together. If I forget that sign switch, the answers won't come together and I'll know I have a mistake. That's why it's helpful to know those things. The more I know, the more powerful I am at this. Okay, so subtract 3. Negative 9x is less than or equal to 57. Divide both sides by negative 9. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is 1x. Switch the sign, and this is negative. Let's see what we got here. We might not be dealing with a very nice number here. 57 divided by negative 9 is negative 6.3 repeating, which is negative 6 1/3. But I'll call it negative 6.3. I'll put the line above there to call it repeating. Over here, same two steps, and still remembering when I divide by 9, switch that sign around. So it's going to be minus 3, which is negative 9x greater than or equal to negative 63. Divide both sides by negative 9. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is 1x. Switch the sign. I just divided both sides by a negative. Folks, that's positive 7. Negative 63 divided by negative 9, positive 7. And we'll find out how this all works out as I go to plot it on my number line. I'm expecting them to come together because the original was a less than, meaning distance is less. Get together. So 0 right here. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 7 is a good way to go here. Negative 6.3 is about right there. Should be filled in dot because it's equal to. And the 7 should be a filled in dot for the same reason. It's or equal to. The answer should be going towards each other. So here we go. X is greater than this one. And that's a good sign. Look where that's going. Towards the other number. So I pause there a minute. X is less than 7. Towards the other one. And there we go. See, the more you know when you're doing it right, and the more you know when you maybe made a mistake, and that's really helpful. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to pause a minute, and I got 2 more to talk about. Not a ton new, but just a little bit. Okay, so here's the final 2 examples for this section. You can kind of see what I did. You have a little experience with watching that first video. There are other things besides just the absolute value on the left-hand side of the inequality sign. Those things need to be gone before you start writing the initial problem and then writing the additional problem with the flip signs and all that. So that plus 8, that's not part of the absolute value. It needs to go first. We get to this next example in a minute. That plus 10 and that 3 gotta go. So over here, subtract 8 right away. So I've got absolute value 4x minus 7. That's out. Greater than or equal to 9. 17 minus 8. Now we're ready to split the problem and get ready to graph it on the number line. We split the problem into 4x minus 7 is greater than 9 versus 4x minus 7 is less than negative 9. The original question right here, I don't look up here, the original absolute value is greater. When I get done with this question, answers should be going away from each other. We want absolute value, meaning distance to be great. Get away from each other. Okay, here we go. I don't care which one we're doing here, folks. It's add 7 divided by 4. Add 7. We have 4x is greater than 16. Divide both sides by 4. X is greater than 4. Same 2 steps here. Add 7. We have 4x is less than, that's negative 9 plus 7, which is negative 2. Be super careful here, folks. We don't want a careless mistake on our hands. Divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1x, less than. Negative 2 divided by 4 is negative half. Negative 0.5. As I go to graph this on the number line. Zero in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1. All along through these situations, it was never an or equal to situation. So they are open circles. 4 will be an open circle. Negative half right in the middle here will be an open circle. We knew from the initial spot right here, not the plus 8, right here, that's greater than. These answers should be going away from each other, and let's start with here. X is greater than 4. That's looking good because that's going away from the other answer. This is x is less than negative half. Less is that way. Those 2 answers do what we expected. Again, the more you know, just the more on top of it you are. Okay, last problem for this entire section. You can see now we have 2 numbers to deal with prior to the absolute value. We must deal with them first, which is the minus 10 from both sides, and then divide by 3, and then we'll talk about splitting the problem into 2. So minus 10, which gets us 3 times the absolute value of 2x minus 16. That's gone. Greater than 76 minus 10 is 66. Divide both sides by 3. Three divided by 3 is 1, so one of these little 2x minus 16 absolute value groups greater than 66 divided by 3 is 22. Okay, now we have the absolute value isolated. Now we're ready to write the two problems. Problem number 1 being what you see, as is. So 2x minus 16 greater than 22. The other question being 2x minus 16 less than negative 22. Okay? And we're ready to go. Now let's pause right here again. That original question was greater than. And I mean when we got to the part where I split, right before I split, that means these answers should be going away from each other, just like the last example. Solving these both require me and you to add 16, divide by 2. So if I add 16, we get 2x is greater than 38. 22 plus 16. Divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1x greater than 38 divided by 16, or 2 is 19. Same two steps here, add 16. (2x less than negative 22 plus 16). What are we looking at there? 6. Negative 6. Divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X is less than. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. If I do the number line over here where I got a little more space, I'm going to kind of simplify this one a little bit. Now if the 0 is right here, it's pretty easy just to say 1, 2, 3 negative here. But 19 is kind of ridiculous, so I'm just going to go down here and say, hey, that's 19. Sometimes when the numbers are so large, I don't worry about this. Now, you guys, the original question right here, right before the split, said greater than, which means the answers should be going away from each other, and we'll verify that right now. The first answer, oh, by the way, there's no equal to here, so everything should be open circle. So open circle on the negative 3, open circle on the 19. This answer says x is greater than 19, greater than. That's this way, and that's a good sign. It's going away from the negative 3, and then x is less than negative 3. That's that way. That's a good sign. So there you go, folks. And you can imagine, if either one of these two questions, the original was switched to being less than 17, which would have got you here, you can see that the signs all along would be switched. So instead of them both going this way, they'd both go together. Every original less than question, the answers will come together to form a smaller distance. And every original greater than question will get going opposite directions to get farther away from each other, creating a bigger distance. So you guys, that's the end of lesson 1-5, solving equations in the first video and solving inequalities in the second. Take care, everyone.